all these protests have got to give you hope out there in the sense of think about how this is being done across the world. What George Floyd did. I don't care if you're white, black, you live in London, you live in India. People are protesting this.
Right. And or what was done to George Floyd, right? Not what George Floyd did, but what was done to him.
What was done to him. And it's got to give you some positive feeling that people, no matter what background or ethnic background, they have come together and said enough is enough.
Yeah. And I feel like we can utilize, the protesting, which I'm happy for, because this is the voice. We need to hear these voices. We need to hear them, and they have every right to protest. I've protested, every right to speak, and to speak this truth. But, again, there are advocates, there are entities like the Grassroots Law Project. And I love seeing organizations, corporations. I've sat in the seat of the diversity inclusion director, and I was what you would call window dressing. No one was taking that as a serious thing. And so finally we're getting rid of the window dressing, and we're starting to go hard in the paint and realize that we've got to do some big changes to make Black Lives Matter, but then also to make certain that we are looking at all marginalized groups and seeing that let's just keep this real. Our country was set up for white men, for you, originally, right? Everything was put in place for you.
Absolutely, yeah.
Then women came along, and then, of course, now we gave blacks rights, right? Civil rights. And then everything was like, whoa. What do we do now? We got to give them rights. We got to give women rights. Okay, they got to vote. They got to do all. So the country was set up for you to be successful. And we had to fight laws. We had to do wars. We had to have wars. And we had to do a lot of, changes. And there's still that bias. So there's still a lot of work to be done. But I know that myself and other advocates are busy trying to kind of come together to, and then also too, looking at people, how can we have people be, and as in the words of Ibram Kendi, anti-racist, right? Not just I'm not a racist. So what does that mean? Being very active in calling out things that are not the policies and procedures, and shifting that power so that it's not against people of color or other marginalized groups.
Yeah, no, I think those are excellent points. And I think this is the battle in the United States is, white men who have seen their country change. And I think it just scares the hell out of them. I think they look around and they feel like they don't recognize their country because they've always been able to run it the way they've wanted to run it. And I think that's really the issue here. I think you bring up a really good point.
Absolutely, because that's called power. And I don't want to give up my power. And I've worked hard to gain this power. But we have to recognize you've worked hard to gain this power, and it wasn't a really hard road for you to do that. And now we're looking at the other people where it's if I could just get in, or if I could just do this, or if I could just have this opportunity or this opportunity and not be treated differently because of my skin color, because of my race, because of my gender, because of being out of this country, or because of my disability, or because of my sexual orientation, perhaps I could get to a certain level. So I think all of this plays a role. And yes, it's acknowledging, because when I do my work, the people that are mad that I bring up privilege are usually, white men or white people. I'm tired of hearing that narrative. I'm tired of you bringing that up. Well, it is what it is. And until we accept that as truth and acknowledge that system was set up that way, then we can start to come to some deeper dialogue.
Well, it's weird because, they'll start talking about reverse racism, and you probably get in those discussions with them, and they feel like there's many. Listen, I can tell you this for a fact. There's probably half this country feels like they are the victims of racism, and these are the white people. They feel like they're being cheated. It's bizarre.
Yeah, well, and that's it is what it is, and I just so you know, I grew up like this. I had a white father. I've always been in the intersection of race. So I've always seen it from a lot of different sides. Growing up, though, my father's family disowned us. So I was raised in Black culture. I identify as an African American woman of mixed race. I'm a Black woman of mixed race. And then, of course, I had a bias against interracial marriages. And out of my I have 5 sisters, I was the only one who was against interracial marriages. And then I wound up being the person to marry a white man. And so
wow. I like that.
What I get to see, and he's 100% in, he works with high-end clients. He's a financial advisor. He owns his own company. So he's in a completely different world that I live in. I do social justice work. I do civil rights work. We're totally different worlds. And so the way we see the world is completely different lenses, but I think it's a reflection of what the world sees, right? And so we get to have interesting conversations. Some of them not always great and fun, very uncomfortable.
No, but it's given you a really unique perspective on the world. Absolutely. It really has.
A very unique perspective. And so does he recognize that bias exists? Yes. Does he recognize privilege? Absolutely. Does he recognize when people are not being absolutely anti-racist? Absolutely. He sees all of that. And the great thing is though he's had 20 years of experience with me. I mean, we've been married for a long time to know that. So, but there's a lot of work to be done. And again, making certain that we hold people accountable, that our police, that there's oversight, that the funding that we're looking at for police officers, that we find other ways that we can shift some of that funding to social programs to help people, looking at the different protocols that are taken. Yes, all of that is up for review.
No more Roach on Florida TV.